2015, we got a chance to go to the Ohio Game Developers Expo. And while we were there, a couple of students and I were looking around and we thought, why isn't there an event like this in West Virginia? So whenever we started the West Virginia Game Developers Expo, it was kind of meant to inspire the people that came there and work on their games together, to share ideas, collaborate, and we were successful. So 5 years later, we have some of the biggest turnout. We have Christian Allen from Epic Games. We have Shannon Moon from Unity, and all these different companies really want the people here to succeed. And they have done a tremendous amount to make sure that we do. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. All right, so the Remake West Virginia Education Initiative is a program that I proposed to retrain workers in West Virginia using technology that had recently become free to use. So in West Virginia, there are a lot of people looking for work, especially now during COVID times. And, what better time to download this free software and learn how to use it? I've had students who, maybe they were laid off from their factory job. Maybe they're an ex-coal miner, or maybe that's their first time going to college and they're brand new to everything. They've never touched a game engine before. And using Unreal Engine, it's incredibly quick to get up and running. You don't need a lot of experience. You don't even need to have a lot of experience coding because you can use blueprints. A lot of the tools and suites inside of the engine itself are, top of the line. They don't take a lot to get into. So with that in mind, when I was at Marshall University earning my bachelor's in simulation and game development, I kind of got bored with the assignments. I would complete them really quickly, and then I just put a lot of time and energy into learning game development myself. So I would go to my professor, Matt Mundell, and I'd ask him, is there anything else I can do? And he would say, yeah, actually, I need some classroom examples to go over some of these things that, I just don't have the time to do. So, it was fun for me. I started with like an RPG template, I think a 3D platformer, and then a brick breaker game, some AI examples. But all these different projects were basically meant so that, while Matt's teaching, and at the time too, I was an instructor of animation and game development at Mountain West Community Technical College, who's sponsoring the event and puts this on every year. And I was trying to improve my own classroom. So I needed to have these projects readily available so that it took less of the burden off of me as an instructor to show some core concepts to my students without needing to create it right there in front of them step by step. So that's kind of where it came about. And whenever I wrote up the proposal for the Epic MegaGrant, it was mainly based on, building curriculum, teaching these things in a way that it's easily digestible and repeatable, so that, Remake West Virginia might be Remake Ohio, or Remake Alabama, or Remake Georgia. So the entire idea here is to have a template of templates almost. So that was kind of the original idea behind it, is just to make the education of these tools more accessible. As I started working on some of the templates, they escalated. So one of them was a mine war museum. So the mine war was the longest insurgency or insurrection in the United States since the Civil War at the time, until this one. So during that project, as we build out this museum for the mine war, I kind of added that to the MegaGrant proposal. And I talked to Linda Selheim, and I talked to Michael Edmonds, and, they kind of discussed that, like, make this project the project that you deliver, make the coal mine war the focus, the emphasis. So I'd say right around the time that the pandemic started, at this time, I didn't think I was going to get the MegaGrant. I hadn't heard anything back for a while. I just let it fall to the back of my mind as I took care of life and worried about health and safety. And then a couple months go by, and I get an email saying, you were rewarded the MegaGrant. So we got $35,000 from Epic Games to create this project. And immediately I thought, who do I want on my team? I thought of David Dunphy. He did some of the UI in the project, and he's helped me out with some programming issues. And he's also working on some of the templates. He's actually working on a 2D side scroller platformer template, because in interacting with my students, a lot of them think of Unreal as it is a 3D game engine, but you can make 2D games in it as well. So having that template to just show them instantly, like, these are all the things you can do. Also, Izzy Bennett, she is an incredibly talented level designer. So I thought, I want her to lead a team. I want her to design the museum and really give us good bones and structure for the project moving forward. Let me take a step back and actually show you one of the template projects. So this is a template project that I have that I actually created after being inspired by one of Christian Allen's talks at Vector Conference. And he just made a little Geometry Wars prototype very quickly. And I saw that and I was like, well, I kind of need to talk to my students about object pooling. So maybe I could do the same thing and I could implement object pooling to demonstrate what it does. So I basically did the same thing. Here you can see the pool of enemies and the pool of projectiles. I made this little button so I could test shoot. And you can see it just kind of round robin work through the rounds. And then as they are cold, they are returned to the pool. So just having this to open up and show and even give to the students, like they can come in here and they can open up some of these. This is probably the neatest. So it randomizes the color. This sets it to the resting state. It uses blueprint interfaces. It covers a pretty wide range of topics, and it's already there. It's already made for me to use. And this is uploaded on GitHub. So if I minimize this and come back to the GitHub page, all these projects are on github.com/Remake West Virginia. I'm gonna pop up the graphic for a little bit. So another part of the Mega Grant was that we got 3 Magic Leap headsets. So David actually has one of the headsets. I have one of the headsets. And then the plan is to create games with them and then possibly donate the third, if that is something I'm allowed to do. So whenever we started working with the Magic Leap, it was super interesting just trying to get these 3D models and the gameplay logic on such a tight spec device. So while we were making the Coal Mine War, that actually helped us make it a lot more performant in VR. I had also recently acquired a Quest 2, so I've been developing the Coal Mine War Museum on the Quest 2 as well. It's been going great so far. Let's see. So in the beginning days of the project, we also had a few more people working on it. A few of them are going to come into the stream later on. Gary Bradford, he's been working on programming UI elements, and I believe he's also working on a Steam. So while I work on the Quest, and the Quest 2 will actually let me emulate a Rift too. So I'm kind of doing, touch controller implementation and overall just working on another platform while he does the Steam platform. And then Jeffrey Simmons worked under Izzy as a level designer. So right now, we're still teaching classes. Everything's being done remotely. It's a perfect chance for me to introduce my students to source control and just overall, downloading the engine from source and, compiling a game. So this is the game that the students worked on this semester. If I go ahead and fire it up. So the first year students basically came in here and got to design pickups and enemies. This game also implements C++ into it. So the second year students got to program classes in C++ that the first year students would learn. They eventually got into the same repo and are able to, work how you would if you worked at a game company, which I think is something that a lot of schools don't focus on enough. Maybe they have, a lot of solo projects, a lot of individual assignments, and a lot of things that, end up being kind of cookie cutter by the time it comes out of the process. But with this, they take ownership of what they do. They work together, sometimes upwards to a team of 20 students. If they're like first year, it's usually around like groups of 3. So we had some experience using source control and working with Unreal Engine before. And getting everyone up and running, I'm actually going to open up the Coal Mine War Museum right now. Getting everyone up and running with source control and Unreal was super easy, or straightforward, I should say. So, with a decent sized team, I think we had also Hunter working on sound, and it's Steam VR is popping up. It's really easy to kind of step on each other's toes, especially whenever Unreal Engine uses a lot of binary files. If one person edits a blueprint and another person tries to push the same or different changes, there's merge conflicts and it can get really hairy. And that was part of one of the things that I wanted to introduce more into my curriculum, was just overall version control and working on larger teams. All right, so this is the project. It is maybe not so much to look at right now. We're still working on basically we're moving in from the blockout stage into final art asset stage. So some of the things here won't look like they will whenever the experience is released. But in the same vein as source control, we have sublevels. We're using a lot of sublevels so that if someone says today I'm going to work on the lighting, don't push anything to the lighting. It's really helped out. We're using GitHub too. We don't have the option to check out files quite as easily as you might in something like Perforce, but it's been going well. So as we developed this project, working on a lot of it was optimization. Trying to get it to run on the Quest has been pretty interesting. We've used a lot of instance meshes, so most everything in here, at least things that will be finalized, are instance meshes. We have a pretty simple material. Instead of some directional lights, we're faking a lot of that using movable spotlights, and we have a lot of work to do. But it's been really great so far. I think the team has, they've really come together. It's an amazing opportunity to receive an Epic MegaGrant and to have the chance to produce a project and work and get paid for it, to eventually see that come through to fruition. So I actually wanted to bring on 2 of my students. So Jacob Johnson, who is also a 3D artist on this project, and then Gary Bradford. I learned a lot about West Virginia that I didn't necessarily know. So we have here, let me see. I will just go to the folder it's in. Sid Hatfield. We learned a lot about who these mine workers, and whenever they were fighting for their right, there was a common sentiment that they were communists, and we hear that a lot today, kind of thrown around, and it's very similar tactics. Most of the time, it's just people wanting a better life. We also found it interesting, some of the machinery. We think of this so long ago, but they used Tommy guns. They had a Vickers water-cooled machine gun that they would fire at strike workers. They would drop aerial shrapnel bombs onto Union headquarters, and even sometimes bleach bombs. So overall, I think it's been a very sombering experience so far, too, just to learn about the history of your own backyard. All right. And I believe Gary has popped in.
I think I'm in.
You're in. I think Ronk is on his way as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's getting fired up, so it shouldn't be too long.
So with that, I kind of wanted to hand the reins off to the next generation of game developers. As a teacher, I succeed whenever my students succeed, and I wanted Gary to be able to talk a little bit about the things that he's done and accomplished, and even like what got him into coming to Mount West and learning game development. Or you already knew game development, but just taking it to the next step.
I knew enough to be dangerous.
Right.
You're talking about somebody that started out with Visual Basic and QBasic, so a long, long way back. But I never really got what I would consider legitimate until probably 2013 to 2012 when I made and released my first game. And that was still so chaotic. I'm not really sure that counts. I being a one-man show, this class has really helped reaffirm to me that doing a game solo is a suicide mission. There are so many aspects for one person to try to cope with: music and art, and, the programming and the level design, and bringing all that together with one person is just a huge undertaking. And as I've went to MCTC, I've seen how much more efficient things run when you have a guy that's good with models and a girl that's good with music and somebody that's good with the blueprints or the programming and somebody that's good with level design. And it showed in our first semester because we turned out what, 5 games?
Yeah. Entered
Uh,
into a couple game jams. You had a couple games shown off at last year's in-person conference.
yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was last year, and we had my 2 games that I brought from before I started school. One of which was in Unity, one was in an older engine. Then we had a newer game that we've transitioned from Unity at the last Expo over to Unreal this year. We had our Unreal Engine game, which was the steampunk dungeon crawler, and there was something else. I think Ronk had his uh, models all rigged up to where they were dancing
Yeah.
and showing off his modeling and rigging and stuff.
What do you?
And
I'm sorry. What do you
oh,
think
go
the?
ahead.
What do you think the like? Were there any concerns that you had about going into school for game development that you're like, I don't really want to go
Well,
and
I'm
do this?
45 years old. When I last went to school, it was before they had made changes to math and the way that they handle curriculum. Um, you know, when I graduated, Nirvana was a new thing. So coming into school at 45 and like some of my teachers are half my age, it was a little taken aback. Yeah, I was really kind of nervous about the whole situation.
Yeah.
But
Mount
once I
West.
sat once I sat down and we started you started asking questions. Well, do you know what an array is? And I'd rattle that off. Or you'd say, what's a string? And I'd rattle that off. I was like, okay, I feel like I'm in my element now, and it just kind of clicked.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like, I think Mount West has a pretty diverse, crowd in a classroom.
Yeah.
So, did you ever feel, in some ways too, you've kind of been a mentor to other students.
I, if other students feel that way towards me, I appreciate the compliment. I still feel like, in a lot of regards, I see you as a mentor because you have been more successful about what you're doing and you have the diplomas to hang on the wall to prove it. And the only thing I have to show for everything I've done for like 25 years is one 2D side scrolling shooter, one 2D Unity game that was a Kaboom clone. And that's about all that's complete right now because the 3D projects take a lot longer. But
But that brings up another point, though, is like you decided to come to school and you already had a game on the Microsoft Store.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so Jacob also just dropped into
Yeah,
dropped
what's
into
up,
the
guys?
stream. How's it going?
It's doing good. It's doing good.
Jacob is another one of my students, and very early on, the curriculum kind of, introduces you to a lot of different things very early on. And very early on, Jacob, uh, found out that he is a very talented 3D artist.
Thank
So
you.
he kind of went with that. The assignments were more tailored to what he wanted his outcome of the program to be, and what he wanted to do whenever he got out of the program.
Yeah.
So he has been making some of the 3D models for this project. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Yeah,
That's
I've got a
something
couple
I
different.
have to. Oh, sorry, Jacob.
Oh, you're good. I got a
That
couple different Blender and Substance pages pulled up so I can show off some of the museum models.
I
Yeah, that's
think
another thing too. Is, we started introducing, like, Epic has a mixer. Substance has become relatively affordable.
Yeah.
Blender,
Quixel.
yeah, we use Blender, Quixel.
I've worn myself out jumping from program to program countless times. So
Oh yeah.
I've went through everything from Blender to Cinema 4D and Substance to Photoshop and After Effects. The list goes on. But I
Well, I
like
was
to
gonna.
have somewhat of a handle on all those programs if I'm going to continue with this field,
One thing I
Go
was
ahead.
going to mention earlier, Corey, is that's something about the game development program I don't think gets a lot of credit. Is when you come into it, you may not be that great at programming, but if you're a good modeler, you can still find your niche and kind of get in that groove and learn how to do that and focus on that and still, find your place. And a
Yep.
lot of these programs want you to do a certain finite amount of things and they consider that game development, and then they just kind of push you through a machine. They don't let you grow
Yep.
towards what you're good at.
I think something that a lot of programs do. Uh, my cat is going to keep interrupting me, but if what a lot of programs do too is they'll they'll give the they'll give the students a lot of the same assignments, and then they come out with a lot of the same portfolios. And this way too, if you're in, like, when I went to Marshall University, I wanted to do like game design more, but I took a lot of game programming classes. I took a lot of art classes. I took a lot of psychology and political science classes, but I didn't really get to expand much on the game development concentration outside of programming.
Right.
So eventually she'll stay down on the floor. I don't think she's going to, but working with all these different programs too, it helps you understand the pipeline. Where even if I'm not going to be necessarily a 3D artist, I still know what your job entails, so I can better help you do what you need to do. And
Yep.
if you need help anywhere, I can try to help you. So it's just overall being a good teammate, and that's a lot of schools have a very competitive style of teaching, where very early on you kind of tell the student that chances are you don't make it out of this program. Like there are
Yeah,
I've
and that
heard of
that's not
horror
very
stories.
reassuring
Yeah, I've
for
No.
a
heard of horror
program.
stories. But in these much smaller classroom environments, you get more hands-on instruction, more time in the programs. I think some students, even if they're majoring in game development, they don't get to touch a game engine until their third or fourth year, and that's your first class coming to Mount West. So
I have to say, I've never had this much fun while learning this much at the same time than when I started this degree in this field up at Mount
I
West.
I back that statement up.
Yeah, it's made learning, and because coming into this, I knew nothing, not a single thing, and now I know 12 plus programs, and I'm halfway through my education. So I've had a stupendous time doing it, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show off some of these models that are going to be in the museum.
absolutely.
All right. So earlier, Corey was talking about a water-cooled machine gun, the Vickers. I am currently still making this one, but it is coming along rather great. This over here is the actual model itself, how it's going to look. I still have to add texture and stuff. I've made a couple other ones as well. Some that are already done are a Mothman Plushie. This was fun. It's the first time I've ever had to make a action figure, I'm going to call it, because he's ready for action. Another one, the minecart. This is part of the museum where they're going to be going on a track down through a portion of the museum that's a lot like a coal mine, how it would be dark, damp, dusty. Down there, they'll be able to see some more of our models that we're going to be making. I've made the title sign for the menu itself when you get into the game. And this will be right at the start menu. Start, options, quit, just like that. And then I got a couple of these over in Substance so you can see what they look like after they're textured. Like here's that same menu sign.
I love how the textures make it pop.
Oh yeah, Substance was a little gold nugget that Cory helped me stumble upon. I've had so much fun messing with the textures. It is kind of a learning curve because it's different controls than the other programs that I'm used to. But I've had a blast doing it. I've done that one.
And you had experience with Photoshop, so the idea of
yes, the idea of it was there. It's you know, you got to be able to maneuver to do what you want, and sometimes
That
can
and
be difficult in
sculpting
itself.
too.
Yes. Here's that mine cart. You can see the coal mine dust all over the wheels and the crevices, and made it real dirty in there. And then same plushie. Got the knitted fabric with the red eyes. Antenna with fur. Got the dusty wings. He looks really cool in the museum, I have to say. Cory did a good job with making his physics and helping us out with that. I don't think I have much more to show off other than that. Could pull up some files. Let's see here.
I think that's fine if you wanted to go ahead and show some of your personal work, even though the topic of this was the Remake West Virginia grant. Part of that too is the education of others, and I think that you all working and starting your own game studio is a huge part of that.
Right.
So if you wanted to show off some of your personal work,
absolutely.
I guess in my nervousness, I kind of neglected to mention that.
Oh.
But yeah, we applied and acquired our LLC so that we can start taking our projects that we're working on in school and then carry them out into the real world and turn those into products.
Yes. Trying to pull up the rings right now. Supreme one. That'll be good.
Actually, these rings are for a project that we started last year and showed off at the Expo as a very rough prototype that has evolved from Unity to Unreal Engine. And then we've taken it a little bit further with ray tracing and then adding VR as another option. So those models have to be detailed because they're going to be on your hands. And when you're looking at your hands like this, they're going to be up in your face. So they need to look good, but not kill the computer too.
Yes. And that's what I've worked on mostly for the past year, is just trying to get my faces, like the different faces you can see here, to be a lower count so the system itself actually reads it better. Now, these rings, the way we did this, we made one ring and then 4 gemstones. There's 4 rings in total. They fit together like so. This one is the jewel ring. Am I saying that right, Gary?
Yes, as in the measurement for energy.
Yes.
Jacob, while you show these off, Gary, do you want to talk a little bit about like where this project came from?
Yeah.
Sure. Back in '81 on a little computer called the Tandy Color Computer 2, some guys took 16K of ROM and built a first-person real-time game on hardware that shouldn't have been able to do it, complete with the digital audio that faded over distance. So the further a monster was, when it walked and stepped and made a noise, it was faded at a distance and really loud up close. Well, this had a collection of items and weapons and stuff, and utilized game design techniques I didn't see until probably the more modern era, where you have a health that regenerates over time and different elements like faded lighting as lighting gets further from the person. It's not a true 3D fade in it, but they take the vector graphics and slowly cut the lines up more and more and more until they fade to nothing. And it just seemed like a property that was ripe for ray tracing or for VR, because it's from the player's point of view. You don't have any interface in your face, so you see the environment, you see the items, you see the monsters and the doors, but you don't have menus to fumble with. So you see a sword, you pick a sword up, you swing that sword. If you see a torch, you pick it up, you use it. It mounts to your backpack, and it runs down over time. Everything feels like there's a real-time movement to it. So I started playing with porting it into Unity, and I ran into AI issues and some other issues, probably due to my lack of knowledge of C# in relation to making Unity do what I wanted to do at that time, because I was starting to come out of Unity and into Unreal.
Yeah.
And then as we moved it over to Unreal, the doors just kind of kicked open and everything took off with it. It was like, wow, that looks really good. That's working like it's supposed to. The AI is not completely dense. And we've slowly been making sure that the player is right, the enemies and the items pick up correctly. We've got the entire first level laid out, and everything's ready for us to finish the prototyping process to get everything finalized. The model he's showing here is a blob that is one of your higher tier enemies on the first level. And those things are terrifying when you're playing in VR, because they're big and up in your face. And when you see them, you know they're a higher tier enemy. So it kind of makes you backpedal a little bit instead of charge into them.
Here's
And
the original too, from the what'd you say, 81?
Yeah, I think it was 81 or 82. If I'm not correct, it's one of those 2 years.
Yeah.
You reached out to the original developer too, and they said that, if you could get a prototype going.
That was for a different game from the NES that we had contacted them about. And they said if we can get a prototype that was presentable to them, they would give it a serious once over and look at it. And if it met what they felt represented the original property well on a newer platform, then they would be very interested in having us complete the project. And I don't, the way they worded their email when we discussed it back and forth, it was like phrased in a way where I can discuss it like with the guys in the group and maybe with you, because you kind of help us with it. But outside of that area, I'm not really allowed to talk about it a whole lot. It's like one of those
that's a perfectly valid
blasted
answer.
NDA things. So I have to be careful with what I say, but it's a very underappreciated game from the NES era, probably in its first generation, which should narrow it down to about 15.
All right.
But it's a game that, with what Unreal can do, would be a really interesting revisit. This one here is something where the author has turned the property loose to public domain. As long as you're not charging for it, you can remake it on any platform or do what you want with it, just as long as you credit him and the other original programmer.
Yep.
There's been several lucky. We all three had been asked to submit resumes to the company that worked on Conan Exiles.
Yeah,
they're working on a new big project based on a movie coming up, and we were asked to submit resumes.
So this brings up a perfect segue. Is what are your dreams and hopes? What do you hope to accomplish in game development? Do you think you're on that path? And what do you think the next steps are?
I think I'm well on my path. I feel like going into this, I didn't think I was going to be a 3D modeler. Previous experience, 3D modeling was just hand to clay, sculpting. So moving it over to a digital aspect was a little difficult, but I've had great fun with it, and I hope in the future that I can actually, get to making asset packs and release my own work out there. Get it out there, get it known, and make a living from it.
Awesome. And then I also had another question. How has COVID impacted your progress? I mean, it must be pretty tough going through this and still going to school. So just how do you feel like?
There was definitely a learning curve at the beginning of it because I was, I had my eyes set on going up to school for school. I didn't want to do the over computer stuff. And when I was put in a position to where I had to do the over the computer stuff, I had to get used to that. And there was a lot of stress, but, just working on a schedule, getting my sleeping right, getting all that good, and then making sure I don't get burned out on the programs I'm using to where I can actually progress on whatever models I make instead of getting stuck or kind of like a writer's block for 3D animation. I mean, it has been comfier going to class, sitting at home. That's probably the best part. But in the beginning, it was rough. Monitors. Yeah, I still have to get me a second.
I think I'm more productive this way as far as like game design goes, because it feels like, I can help the kids get their virtual schooling started and they can get doing their thing. I can come do my classes real quick, and then I can shift over to working on the museum project or Dungeons of Daggerth or one of our other projects. And I can tear into that and work on it for a good while. And then I'm like, oh, crap, it's time to eat. I have to run down, go get the kids something to eat, and then we come back up. And like what you were saying with COVID's impact, probably the biggest impact for me has been where we're having the kids virtual learn because they're always at home. So anything I do has to be balanced around that. And it can make it kind of hairy sometimes.
That's understandable. So before...
I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let Gary turn something off. So we stop staring at rings.
So before I kind of like take back over the stream from you all, is there anything that you would impart on our guests today watching this? Maybe they're thinking about getting into game development, or maybe they're already in and kind of, feeling some of those same struggles from COVID.
Don't fear it. Don't fear it. That's the biggest thing. Going into it, I was so afraid. I was like, because I'd never even owned a big desktop before, and nothing like that. I was a strictly Xbox guy. So getting into this, I had to learn my keys, my hotkeys, this, that, and the other. But do not fear any of the big words because they're going to throw them at you. It's not frowned upon to look for outside tutorials and stuff like that. Anything to progress your work and your craft. But yeah, just don't let fear stop you because it's really not that scary. It's a cuddly monster, I guess.
If you're somebody like me that kind of played your first couple of games and went, holy crap, this is what I want to do. This is what I really enjoy the whole idea of this, coming up with brand new places or brand new characters and figuring out a way to make this work on a digital environment. If you're one of those people, the worst thing you can do is stop yourself by saying, well, I'm too old or I can't learn that. You need to don't really need to push yourself. Just let your drive take you because it'll pull you right into it. And before you know it, you're halfway through. I'm in my third semester now, getting ready to go into the fourth. And I've almost got my first 2-year degree, and I've got several games under my belt. I've got plenty of stuff I've done to kind of hone my skills. And it's all because I just dove in and did it.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that's great advice. So thank you both for coming on here and just talking about what your experience has been learning game development in this community. Community is super important to me, and it's super important to all of us. That's why we're here. And then with that, is there any way that people in chat can, get a hold of you, or anyone watching this afterwards maybe want to hire you?
Oh yeah, I could put our
Or
emails in the chat even.
I've got a LinkedIn. Wolfpack has a LinkedIn. We have Facebook page. We have a website now. You helped us get our Trello going, so we've got that going. We've got a GitHub going. We're pretty easy to get hold of, and we love to BS about games. So anybody that mentions a game, old or new, you'll probably stir us up out of the woodwork from somewhere.
Awesome.
Easiest way to find us is probably Facebook, though. Wolfpack Studios.
Yeah, because it links all of our other things together, because Facebook's really not that big of a driving force as it once was for, like, I think, game developers. That seems to be more like Twitter and places like that.
Twitch stuff.
So we kind of use Facebook as a way to link everything else together.
All right. Well, they can go ahead and get a hold of you on however they choose.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you again for coming out. And I'm just going to finish up the stream by talking a little bit more about Remake West Virginia, and what the plans are going forward. It's been a long 5 years. This is kind of the end of my 5-year plan, and I guess I got to make a new one. So what's going to happen moving forward? I have the blog site. I plan on making all of the curriculum that I use in class free there. So you can just go there and basically work through all the exercises that the students do. We have all the projects open on GitHub. I'm going to promote those more. Get everything to where it's more of a template that you can pick up and just reuse. Epic Games has had a huge helping hand in how successful all this has been. Same with Unity, same with Mount West even. Cabell Huntington Hospital sponsored the event one year, Strictly Business, the emergency app. We've had just a tremendous outpour of support. And moving forward, hopefully that continues. I think it will. I think it's only going to get even better and even bigger. This is a pretty convenient conference in the way that, like, no one had to leave and go anywhere. I've had students in West Virginia that maybe they even want to go to conferences like Vector in Kentucky, and they just don't have a ride. They can't get there. That's fine. So events like this are super accessible. I hope that there is, maybe we have an in-person expo and then an online expo. So we do 2 a year. Just throwing it out there. Maybe Patrick agrees or disagrees. We'll see how he feels after this next 2 days. And with that, I did just want to leave on probably an expected release date of the Coal Mine War Museum. It's going along pretty well. I think that we should probably have it early 2021. So we're going to keep working on it. We haven't burned through all the grant money. So we're just going to keep trucking along. We're going to get it finished. We are right on schedule. There's only been a few milestones I've had to push back, but for the most part, our Trello board is looking good. So with that, I did want to open it up to if anyone had any questions. I see Gary posting links to the site and the Facebook group in chat. I highly encourage getting a hold of them. They are tremendous talent. I couldn't praise them enough. And as a matter of fact, most of the students that come through, West Virginia has an incredible amount of talent. At starting off, we didn't know each other, but then now we kind of congregate around this expo and around this event, and it's helped bond a lot of people, a lot of friendships. So it's really a labor of love. This expo has been so inspirational to so many different people. I think it's hard to deny. All right, so I'll go ahead and open it up to QA. All right, well, while everyone's thinking of a question, I did want to add some of the, as like a almost like a midway postmortem, some of the issues that we've had in the project. We started using Vulkan, which is a like a mobile rendering. So there's this weird thing with like mobile lighting that it will call out shadow maps, and you can only have much like on with desktop rendering in DirectX, you can only have so many shadows on a surface. So that is probably my task for next week, is just getting the lighting looking better. Probably we have a couple models still in the works, going through and adding a lot of polish. It looks great on the Quest. We could probably still pick up some frames, I think, if I don't crash the engine. And so I'm displaying some of Gary's comments. He has their site and their Facebook. It didn't freeze. So yeah, we could probably still pick up some frames. I am working on getting a lot of Runks models in here, and if we need to, creating LODs and reducing them as much as we can, using fewer instructions in the material. The material has changed quite a bit during the duration of this project. At first, it was just going to be a desktop game, so we were kind of going all in. We were kind of hoping for Unreal Engine 5. Day and night, we could just render whatever we wanted. But, for now, I think working in a tighter budget has actually, it's been really fun, because much like the pandemic, I started rebuilding this. I started rebuilding this right at the beginning of the pandemic, because I figured I had a lot of time. So a lot of us have a lot of time to learn new skills. There's a lot of like Udemy courses, as Gary and Jacob were mentioning. There's a lot of YouTube tutorials. All these programs are totally free. Go download them and get started making stuff. For like usually on average 200 frames a second. I would like to pick that up and possibly even use it elsewhere. Yeah, so I basically I did have the Vulkan renderer preview open, and I was kind of going into lighting, but that's not important. What is this Roomba? In making this, while we were like programming out some of the structure of the game and setting up a lot of the menus, I got bored and made a Roomba. So yeah, I'd say using VR, I think this is the first project a lot of us have made a VR application, really, and like tried to complete it as a product. And I'd say the user experience is a huge thing to get around, because when you're physically in the space with things, it's a lot more important that they feel good. Yeah, we had a few issues with the aliasing around the menu, on the lower resolution screen. So just a ton of different things, but it's been fun. We're going to continue working on it, and it's going to come out great.
So what about if anybody is actually interested in trying to do any extra help for Remake West Virginia?
Oh, yeah, you could actually probably just reach out to the page on Twitter. So we, twitter.com/Remake WV. You can message that account, and I think a few of us are managing it. You could follow me on Twitter. Just send me a message at Cory and then 2 underscores. Yeah, if you want to help out, and a lot of it too is going to be open source. So you could technically go contribute to those projects now if you think the idea is like, something that you're passionate about. I've had like you're working on the 2D template. Mm-hmm. I think Hunter had also worked on the tower defense template. So right. A lot of people are contributing to those projects. So yeah, just get in contact with me any way you can. I just want to thank Patrick again for all the work that he's done putting on the West Virginia Game Developers Expo. Huge thanks to Epic Games for the MegaGrant. It's been a lifesaver, and I know that it's helped support a lot of developers in the area so far, and will continue for the duration of the grant. thank everyone again for coming to the talk and the expo in general. I know it started off a little weird. This is our first year using StreamYard. I actually hope to use this even in the future to try to convince Patrick to, because it's super convenient. So, have a fun rest of your event, and I'll see you in chat.